Sophia DeSantis, thank you so much for joining us on the Plant Turners podcast today.
I am so excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. We want to know what you're grateful for today in this moment.
I actually have been thinking this like just the last couple days. I am actually really grateful, as crazy as it sounds, for my three kids. We have had, a rough last year having the kids at home, having to, switch things around. But, honestly, I have just taken a step back lately and just looked at them, and they are just such good boys. I have all three boys. They really are. They're just good kids. So I'm really grateful for them.
Well, that says a lot for you, Mama.
We try. It's challenging, but we try.
It's also, pretty amazing that because there's three of them, they have each other. And over the course of such a difficult time for so many families that only have one child, where they're alone and they're not seeing other people, what a difference that makes, eh? We were talking about that the other day.
Yeah, we have talked so much about that because my oldest has two really close friends that are alone. And we just keep telling them, like, you guys are you have no idea how lucky you are. Just so lucky.
Yeah. We have a boy and a girl. So, it took them a long time to find common ground, right? Like he was a little bit older, more into like, not gaming, but what do you call it? Programming? What's that stuff called?
Programming.
Programming. Yeah. And like she was more into like her girl stuff. So it took a long time for them to find common ground. But I've always said to them, you guys need each other. Like whether you believe it or not, like you'll be best friends. You'll need each other. You'll grow together. You'll have each other longer than you'll have us. And they were always like, ew, no. But I think that in this past year, they've realized that more, and they fight and they'll pretend that they're not friends. But like we will go for family walks and they'll walking in front of us, actually we'll look up and they're actually holding hands and we're like, what are those, our children? It's interesting, and we do feel for the children who are alone, but at the same time, every family's got their thing. Every family's got their challenges. They've got their things they're good at and all of that. So hopefully everybody's just coming out on top. And COVID has changed people a lot. But what we want to hear about next is how you found a plant-based lifestyle and what changed for you and your family.
So we changed our diet about in 2012, actually. I had just had my second child. I went through a lot of fertility to have my first child. We went through 3.5 years, 4 IVFs, 3 IUIs, surgeries, all the things. And we got pregnant. I think it was 3 months after we had our first. It was a little bit of a shock because it just happened. But I was so grateful because I was not going to go through that again. And, with the second child, 2 being back to back, 15 months apart, my husband started traveling for work. His medication that he was taking for his high blood pressure, cholesterol, it wasn't working anymore. So he started seeing a new cardiologist. And this cardiologist basically said to him, hey, we can get you a new med. We can up your meds. But just as a side note, I do work with a lot of patients on dietary changes to help their cardiovascular health. And if you're interested, here's a documentary. Let me know. No pressure. And basically, I remember the day I was laying in bed, nursing. I just finished nursing the baby, and I was just kind of, having that mom snuggle time. And he came up to me on the side of the bed, and he said, "I want to change our diet." And I looked at him. I was like, "What do you mean?" Like, because we thought we were healthy. We were pretty healthy. I grew up pretty healthy. He goes, "I want to cut out animal products," and I literally laughed. I laughed at him. He's Italian. I was like, okay. But he seriously looked at me. He goes, I'm serious. I feel terrible and I'm ready to make a change. And I looked at him. I was like, all right, well, we're a family. I do most of the cooking. If you're ready to make a change, we're doing the change. So I said, I am a research person. I said, give me a month to check this whole thing out. So I took a month. We started November 1st of 2012, and we did it. We had an end goal of 21 days where we eliminated animal products, gluten, sugar, caffeine, and alcohol. And ironically, day 22 was Thanksgiving, which is funny because it's just ironic. So we said, let's just do it and see what happens. Well, at the end of that 21 days, both of us felt really good. I struggled postpartum with all of my children and my first two especially, and I felt amazing. So we just said, this is it. This is what we're doing. We took a step back and decided to not, have this black and white attitude about it, to be mostly plant-based. And that's what happened 9 years ago. We're still going strong.
That's wonderful. So when you talk about you felt better and you felt your best, what changed in there?
Well, as I said, postpartum was challenging. I had just had two babies within, 15 months of each other. My body still hadn't recovered from all the fertility drugs and everything I had. And I was just kind of a mess. And I just started feeling emotionally better. I started having more energy within the first year. Of having my first child, and starting after we changed our diet, that next January, I actually ran 3 half marathons. I PR'd in one of the hardest half marathons here in the San Diego County. And I just felt just super strong. I had more energy. I felt clearer. Just overall, it's a hard description to say you feel healthy, because really what is healthy is, it's just this freeing, clearing type feeling that I had.
And your pregnancy that you had with your third child, did it feel different than the other two?
It did. And, I definitely think part of that was that the third was not planned either. We clearly, it's that saying, be careful what you wish for. We were done after 2 kids, and we were actually trying, not to get pregnant, and we did. So he's our little, third little oops, because he's 3 years after. But I will say that I felt completely different. I also didn't have all the drugs in me, but the big telling part was the postpartum was not the same. It was easier, and granted, it's a different situation because I didn't have 2 babies back to back. However, overall, I did feel much stronger, much better, and I felt like I healed way faster with my third.
How's his health now, your husband?
Great. He hasn't been on meds since. He's a picture perfect of health. He goes in for his checkups, and the nurse is like, you're not on any medication. He's going to turn 50 next year. And she's shocked that he's on no medication. It's just not normal.
It's really amazing how much food really impacts our health overall, and how many stories there are like his, like mine, that are so similar, and people just don't hear about them often enough. So that's partly why we love sharing all these stories, because there's someone listening that needs to hear it and needs to understand that they have control over their health to a certain extent, and a lot of it starts with what's on their plate.
Yeah. Well, and I also think that we need to get more physicians on board with it, because he was lucky. He had a cardiologist who was fully invested. And I actually, ironically, have my GP is osteopath, and she is plant-based herself. But I don't think it's as common, and we really need to get this connection between Eastern medicine, Western medicine, and food into the medical space. I mean, especially after we see what happened this last year.
Yeah. And I think that there is progress. Maybe it's not fast enough, but I think that we can recognize process and see where we might be in 5 years from now, in 10 years from now, for sure. So it sounds like you did a lot of planning before you actually took your leap, which most people don't do. They kind of say, I want to start tomorrow, so what do I do? Right? Or there's Adam saying, I've started now, and boom, I'm done, black and white, I'm done. But I know that you have different ways of creating meal systems and meal planning. So what's the difference between the traditional meal planning and the kind of meal planning that you like to do?
So I started out traditionally meal planning. I said, we're starting a new diet. I've got 2 babies. I have to be organized or life is going to get out of control. So I started with traditional meal planning, where I would look up recipes. I'd have my little board with all the different things we were eating. And what I found is that it worked short term, but then I would burn out, or I'd get to a day where the babies were crazy and I just didn't have the energy to do what I wanted to do. And it became to, the cycle of feeling like a failure. I'm not good enough. I can't do this. And then I realized that there had to be a better way. So I started thinking about, well, what are the issues that I'm having? Well, I'm having the issue of I can't sustain making these recipes every single day. I also had the issue where I would have a day where, with life, it doesn't always go as planned, and oftentimes it doesn't. And I just didn't have the energy at the end of the day. And then I also found that I was burnt out because I was making everything all the time. So the difference between a meal system and a meal plan is that when you have a plan, it may not pan out. And when things don't pan out with human nature, you feel like you failed, and with human nature, the way we are is when we have a failure, it tends to eat away at us and take us down. Whereas a meal system is just a systematic way at approaching your meals. And with systems, it's flexible. Things can change. So when you are creating a system, you're accounting for change. You're accounting for the energy you have to make things. You're looking ahead at your week and saying, Wednesdays, we have soccer followed by baseball, followed by this. That's a rest day. And the other part is that I'm recognizing in my system, we need days to rest and recharge. And we don't think a lot about that when it comes to food. We mostly push like homemade is best, fresh is best. However, our stress is also a big part of our health and wellness. And if we don't take a day at least to order out, do take in, go out, or eat something frozen where you're not putting any energy into it, we're not allowing ourselves to recharge all the way to put our energy into the other days.
I agree completely. If we're going to do something frozen and my daughter says, couldn't we have mashed potatoes with it? I'm like, oh God, I want to make you mashed potatoes, but I don't want to do it on a frozen day. I want off on my frozen day. I want to,
yes.
I'll cook it tomorrow when even if I'm making 18 other things at the same time, I'd rather just do it then and not
yes.
have the mess to clean up and all of that. So I get that. And that makes complete sense. And you don't want to be pulling up the recipe book on baseball, gymnastics, late meeting night. And that's the day that you're planning on trying a new recipe that maybe no one's going to like. Right. So you've got to really take a look at the schedule.
Definitely. I mean, it's part of being mindful. It's practicing mindfulness, honestly, and honoring what your schedule is and being okay with that and accepting the things that are instead of trying to constantly fight it, because that is a losing battle. I know, I've been there.
So what is the way to navigate these meals if you have picky eaters or people who, and sometimes we have picky eaters, but sometimes we have children who just don't like this one particular food. It doesn't make them picky, but that's, if they don't like tomato sauce, but they'll eat everything else in the world. Well, tomato sauce and pasta is really easy to make. So how do you navigate that? What do you have to say about that?
Well, picky eaters, that's the word picky actually is a thing with me, because what is picky really? I mean, just because someone, like you said, doesn't like tomato sauce, why is that picky? It's just a preference. And I think sometimes with children, we don't give them enough credit. Like as adults, we have things we like and we don't like. And it's just kind of looked at as like, okay, cool, that's your preference. But with kids, it's almost looked at like, well, what do you mean you don't like it? And I think that children are allowed to not like something. I do think that they need to experience things and, before they can make a decision. But for us, we have a family where my oldest one is pretty much eat everything under the sun. He will try anything. He's open to new experiences, has always been like that, never been through any stages. My middle one and my younger one have been up and down. My middle one's getting better, but my younger one is weird. He could live on lettuce and cucumbers, but refuses anything like mac and cheese. It's just the oddest thing ever. So I do a lot of what's called component cooking. And component cooking means that you batch cook multiple things. Like I do beans, I do rice, we roast a ton of veggies. I make sauces every week. And the best part of component cooking is you have the components of a meal and you can put them together in a lot of ways. So in that sense, you can offer, like, let's say you do all this and you do a grain bowl. Well, you give the power back to the person eating and you have all these options and they get to choose what to put on it. So everyone's eating the same thing. You're not a restaurant. You're not making 4 different meals to please 4 different people. But they also have control in saying, I like this, I'm going to put this on, but you know what? I don't really like this, so I'm not going to put this on. And it just kind of gives control back to the person. It's also giving them the respect of, hey, these are your options. And for us, I usually do like 3 or 4 different veggies. I always know somebody has a veggie they like. And it's like, we need to have balanced meals. Pick your veggie, pick your grain, pick your protein, whatever it is that you like.
I think that's why our kids like our build your own burrito night, because we have everything laid out and it's like a buffet and they get to pick and choose their own adventure. Makes a lot of sense.
And then every now and then they come up with something different that they want to add to it. Like we went through a sprint where Russell wanted shaved lemon peel in his burritos.
Oh my gosh.
For a really long time.
Interesting.
So we were like, yeah, we were making all those like little lemon zests for a long time. We were zesting it up, and then we kind of stopped that. And of course, she didn't like the zest, and probably because he did, right? But but yeah, so different things can come up, and I know what I'll do with the refried beans. There's a brand of refried beans that I like because there's no added oil into it. But I'll take it and I'll scoop it with an ice cream scoop and I'll freeze it in a Ziploc bag because not everybody likes the refried beans. So I'm only using a little bit at a time and I'm not wasting the whole rest of the can too. Right?
Yes. Yeah. And you're pulling it out whenever you need it, which is awesome.
Yeah.
You talked a little bit about failure earlier, and a lot of people have trouble and challenges in the kitchen and they end up feeling like they're failures. So what are some things that people could think about in setting themselves up for success and going about it not so much feeling like they failed in the kitchen?
Well, I would say the first thing is just accepting where you are, in that moment. So if you have, a season of life where you're just busy a lot, simplify it. You can eat healthy very simply. You can eat wholesome plant-based meals extremely simply. It does not have to be the fancy Pinterest recipe all the time. And I think that's where people get, overwhelmed, is that they see all these fancy things and they think that's the only way to do it. But, we're talking, this last year, a lot of people have had to reevaluate their finances. You can use, like I give examples with, roasting vegetables or whatever, doing stir fries. If you have that frozen vegetable mix and that's what you can do, use it. There is nothing wrong with that. There's nothing that, there's no race here. There's no prize. There is no one that's going to come give you a medal because you made the Pinterest meal. So number one would be accepting where you are and what you can handle. I also think that creating a system and looking at each week as it comes and being okay with, shoot, we have 3 days this week that are extremely busy. We're just going to have to do the frozen meals 3 days this week. And that's okay. That's honoring not only, your time, but it's also honoring your mental state and being okay with that. Another thing that I think is really important is thinking about your process, like batching what you're doing. Like what you said is the mashed potatoes. Well, if you're not cooking that night, making those mashed potatoes actually takes quite a bit of energy. However, if you're already in the mode of cooking, adding those mashed potatoes in is not going to take that much more energy. So it's really batching your tasks and, organizing your week to know that I have a big chunk of time on Sunday afternoon. I am going to create, make and create all these things so that Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I'm just pulling them out and I'm not putting all this energy at starting from scratch again. So I think that helps with the overwhelm, is breaking it up instead of approaching it as this big thing and this goal that you have to meet where, it's not necessary.
Yeah, I love that. No one's coming into your house to give you a medal, right? Like no one's really,
yes.
But
at the same time, everybody's looking at Pinterest and looking at Instagram and seeing all these amazing photos, and they think that, you eat with your eyes first. So you want the food to look good, but does it have to look exactly like what you're seeing? Probably not. Even if you're following a recipe, it doesn't have to be exactly like you see it in the book. It's still going to taste good.
But I can say that when it does, you feel more, you do feel a little bit more accomplished. You do feel a little bit more like, look what I did, proud of your work. You know, you do get that feeling. And it's funny because this morning at 7:30 a.m., I was on the phone with somebody in Singapore, and she runs cancer coaching, and she wanted me to come on and do a Facebook Live with her talking about plant-based. And part of what I can gather from what she said is, you guys have your stuff together. You know what you're talking about. You're putting a lot of content out there. Your meals look great, but they don't look Pinterest ready, and they don't look Instagram ready. They look real, like somebody else could make it too. So if somebody else makes our meals and it looks like our meals, they're still going to feel proud and they're still going to be amazing. But we haven't sprayed it with like water or fixed the lighting or used Q-tips to like put the strawberry or the seed in the right place either. So there's something to say of if you set your expectations too high. Have you ever seen those food videos of them, how they make the food for the advertisements for TV and stuff? Half of it's not even real food, or it has some kind of like hairspray on it. It's not edible. Yeah. No. And people don't realize that. And as a mom who's trying to get things done great, or maybe as a dad who's trying to get things to look good and look like the picture and also like feed the kids and have everybody like it, it is really easy to feel like you failed.
Totally. And I also think you need to, part of that is also just recognizing, you know, and I do a lot of this behind the scenes in my Instagram, is I show the realness behind it. Because to get people to come to my website, to be able to work with brands, to be able to run my business, I do a lot of photography, and all my food is edible. I don't have the money to waste the food. So I don't put anything on my food that does not allow us to eat it, because it goes from my photography days, that is dinner, and that is that. But at the same time, you know, like I do take more time to plate something, but I also behind the scenes show what it looks like when we're eating it, what it looks like when, and I think that as technology and as social media and as all these things infiltrate our life, we also need to take a step back and be strong enough to surround ourselves by things that benefit us and better us as humans. And it's the same thing that they talk about, you know, this whole phenomenon with young girls and what they're seeing, and, oh, I don't look like that, I'm not good enough. That really applies to every part of our lives. And we need to say, like, this is not conducive to my mental health. This is not making me feel good inside. So where am I going to go? Who am I going to, you know, connect with to fill me up instead of drain me? And that's where you want to find those, you know, brands, you want to find those accounts that show the realness, you know? I mean, I show burnt stuff in my stories all the time because it happens.
And I love that you do that, and I applaud you for doing that. And yeah, it's not like our stuff looks like slop. I mean, like, obviously, like, we always have one bowl that looks a little bit nicer than the rest, but again, like, we're not putting hairspray into food and stuff like that. So I love that you do that, because it's setting up that realistic expectation, right? Like, you there's no reason why you can't put the mushroom or the parsley like in a good spot, but you're not spending 13 hours making it right. And I think it's really important for listeners to understand that a lot of time that's what's being done. And, you know, we always know that our pictures look nicer when the sun's coming in. So it's like in the winter, I guess for you guys too, but in the winter, Adam's like, can we get dinner on the table a little bit earlier so that the picture looks just a little bit better, right? Like, so those kind of things do definitely make a difference. So what are your 3 top dinners in your house or with your clients?
So going back to simplicity, because that's kind of what I'm, you know, trying to do most of the time. Being in Southern California, burritos and tacos, we don't have a week where we don't have a burrito or a taco, because they're so versatile. You can really put anything in them, and it's easy to change it up so that you're not eating the same thing, you know, every single week. So we always have some sort of burrito or taco. Our simple burritos, like when my husband, if I'm out for the night, one of his signature dishes is bean rice and avocado burrito. He uses the Trader Joe's frozen brown rice. He uses a can of black beans and avocado, and, you know, sometimes he'll put salsa in the ones where the children that love salsa want it. but it's so simple and so easy to make. Another thing I love doing is different bowls. Like I said, the component meals. I love letting my kids have, the responsibility and the ownership of creating that bowl because they tend to eat it more. So we do a lot of different bowls, whether they're grain bowls or salad bowls. My kids do like salad actually, so sometimes we do that. So that's a great one because I can prep once and eat multiple times. And then another easy go-to, especially right now, I do a CSA box with all these fresh veggies. We roast veggies and throw them with pasta. Just so easy. I tried this thing last week, actually, that my entire family loved, where I chopped the veggies really, really small and spread them out and roasted them, almost charred. And then we mixed that with pasta sauce, and it just gave this like awesome flavor and this texture to the sauce, and put it over pasta, and everyone cleaned their bowls. So that's a new fave.
That's a keeper. I love when you find the keepers, right? And then
yes,
sometimes you'll make it and you'll be like, oh, that's a keeper, and you'll forget about it, and you won't make it till 3 months later. And within that 3 months, they've forgotten that they like it, and then it's a miss.
Yes.
So once you find them, you got to stick with them.
Yes, I know. Kids are so random. I mean, my little one's like that. He doesn't want something. I'm like, you ate like 2 bowls of that the other week. They're like, eh. I'm like, oh,
they
okay,
change their minds every day. Every day it's something different.
Sage has a different favorite color. Like, she's like, guess my favorite color. We're like, red. She's like, no, it's purple. We're like, I'm pretty sure yesterday you said it was red.
And the day before it was blue. But
and they look at you like you're a monster. Like, how could you not know this? And you're like, sorry.
I'm your child. Yeah, exactly. And then what about lunches? I mean, a lot of people, we're on summer break now, but lunch boxes, let's say, do you send your kids to school with their lunch, or do they get lunch at school?
So, this year in, I don't know if it's all United States, but definitely in California, one of the initiatives is to give free lunches to everybody. So, my kids, our schooling has been part-time, but then the last couple of months it was 5 days a week, but they come home at 1 or at 12:30. So they give them lunch as they walk out the door. They don't eat lunch at school. And depending on what it is, my kids will sometimes take it. My kids sometimes won't. We are big on actually snacky lunches here. We love the picnic, like snacky, appetizer-y type lunches. So sometimes we do as simple as, veggies with hummus and crackers, whatever it is. Like, they love having that kind of lunch. And I'm like, hey, that's cool. That's like European style, So they oftentimes do that. But another really one that we really like is we call them burrito roll-ups. So, and it could be anything. Sometimes it's even like peanut butter and jelly or almond butter and jelly. And we roll it on the burrito, and then we roll it up and slice it. So it's, like little, they love that. That one works really well with hummus and avocado as well. And then another thing that when I often do veggie burgers, like I'm big on different veggie burgers. When I do that, I sometimes make a little bit extra, and I roll them into like little nuggets. And so I have them in the fridge, and they love that to like dip. Anything you can dip really is kind of their thing.
Yeah, some great ideas. And a lot of people are stuck in the mindset of it has to be a standard type of lunch. It has to be a sandwich, or it has to be
hot.
Yeah, like, but it doesn't. Like, I love the snacks and the little bits and bites and just things that they could casually be eating regularly. It's a good plan.
Well, and it also helps when they come home. It's still kind of my work time. So if they don't come home with a school lunch, they know they can actually do this themselves. We have everything prepped. And so even my 6-year-old can come home, takes the hummus out of the fridge, takes the veggies, puts them in their plate. Like, it makes them feel empowered about serving themselves lunch, and they can make those roll-ups. They can make those things themselves. So I like to make life easy in the sense that I need to, like you said, like having this specific idea of what it has to be. I like stepping out of the box and allowing them to do things too. As long as they're eating a round, wholesome meal, like I don't care what they're eating, to be honest.
Yeah. Even if the combination seems a little bit weird and disgusting to us, like, who are we to judge if they're getting those good things inside their body?
Right. You do you. Yeah.
Exactly. Good. Sophia, this has been so wonderful, so inspiring. I think people are going to get some really great ideas. I love the idea about component meals. You do have a giveaway about that, right? So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's just a free guide on just what a component meal is, because some people, don't really understand what that entails. And it gives specific examples of how you can put together your own component meals. And then I actually give a list of things that we do at home, recipes that we make with the different components, and how easy it is to actually change it up. Because just because you have all these components and you make a bowl or a burrito out of it, it roasted veggies and rice can easily be pulsed in a food processor to make a burger. So these components, as the week goes on, can totally be created into something new.
I love that. So we're going to post that on our show notes at planttrainers.com. And if people want to reach out to you or learn more about what you do or follow you, where would you like them to go?
So as I said, I'm really active on Instagram. I've taken to that platform just because I feel you can be so much more real behind the scenes in your stories. So if you want to see the ups and downs of my life, I share them both. I'm always on Instagram. I take pride in saying that as much work as it is, I respond to every single one of my DMs. So slide into my DMs, get in touch, ask me questions. I'm totally here for you. My website, I respond to all my comments as well. And then the other area is my email. I'm really big on my email list. I love, getting in touch with people over email. And that is sophia@veggiesdon'tbite.com. I love connecting with people. That's just part of why I love what I do.
And what's your Instagram handle?
Veggies Don't Bite.
Veggies Don't Bite. So we're going to put all that in the show notes at planttrainers.com. Sophia, thank you so much for joining us today on the Plant Trainers podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.